I'll kind of freak out. For all my accumulated stage time in front of young people, I am oddly filled with anxiety at the prospect of speaking in front of adults. I'm not sure why that is. I guess you're my captive audience too. Maybe it's because they're my captive audience. Plus, I dug around the Washington State Board of Ed website and looked at all your bios, and seriously amazing and slightly intimidating. So you guys all seriously rock. Wow. I'm honored.
We like to think that.
It's true. And I think I met Ben over the, yeah, nice to see you. So I literally work right up the street at Fort Vancouver High School, Center for International Studies, newly this year. It's an incredibly diverse school, which in edu-speak has come to mean poor and immigrant students mainly. And both of those identifications are true, but also at Fort, the best part of the definition of diversity is also true. The student body is a broad mixture of cultural representations. It's comprised of dozens of different languages, and it represents East Africa, the Pacific Islands, Mexico, Ukraine, Russia, Cambodia, Vietnam, the list goes on and on. And one of our missions at Fort, something I understand that you've been discussing, is getting students college and career ready by graduation. When we talk, we in the field of education, about college and career readiness in forums like this and conferences, what do we imagine that looks like? I mean, how can we quantify what a young person who is ready for the first day of the rest of their lives looks like leaving a high school building? The truth is, it looks different for every child. But we do what we're doing right now because we want every single one of them to have the opportunities to succeed, or we wouldn't be here in the first place. I firmly believe that. When we look at readiness, we must also recognize the barriers that exist for these young people in our educational systems. Right now, in fact, I was doing that right as you called me. I'm currently in the thick of personal statement season, as I like to call it. I teach English language arts to seniors. I have all senior classes. A few years ago, I started requiring my students to write a personal statement as part of a narrative writing unit. And I did that because going back a couple of years, we had a period of time where an abysmal number of students were going on to secondary education. And I needed to try and figure out why. And it wasn't until I realized that the vast majority of my students had absolutely no idea how to apply for college and everything that entails. So that's when I decided to address the problem in whatever capacity I had in my own classroom. And I asked my students why they weren't doing it. I learned that they weren't not going to college because they weren't capable. They weren't going to college because they simply could not imagine themselves there. The majority of my students have no family members with college degrees and nobody to serve as the embodiment of future expectations, and I wanted to help change that. So one thing I've learned about changing the trajectory of something is that you can't do it alone. There were a few things that started happening that started to turn the tide in my building. I started spending a lot of time in our career center learning from my fabulous colleague Marie Monick about what it took to get into college, because it had been, at that time, almost 20 years since I was in school, so things had changed. We also partnered together with WSU and WSUV to do an instant admissions program. When people are in the building ready to help our young people right on the spot, that makes a difference. Avid and Gear Up entered our building about 5 years ago, and that made an enormous impact on students just seeing college banners around, having that college-going culture everywhere they looked. They started to imagine themselves being there maybe too. I also started organizing a panel of former Fort students. Trappers is our mascot. to come in for a Q&A with our students. And they could ask them anything they wanted. But really, it was because they needed to see people that looked like them and dressed like them and talked like them and were first-generation students like them doing what they could do and imagine themselves in that place. It's powerful to have your peers. It's one thing for me to tell them, you should go to college, it's going to change your life. Well, okay, but I'm from a different universe than they are. So showing them that it's possible to be a first-generation student is what has changed things in a way that I couldn't do on my own. So 8 years ago, we had less than 10 students dedicated to going to a four-year college. And last year we had approximately 100. So that is a huge turnaround. For my own part, in my own classroom, I'm making an expectation in my class that they at least consider higher education. And in order to do that, I had to facilitate a culture of trust and give the students the knowledge that I cared about them, because as Wes Moore says, kids have to think that you care before they care what you think. And that's really, really true. Inside of the classroom is where the work takes place. I also became an adjunct professor with Central Washington University with the college and the high schools program, and I'm able to offer my AP students college credit, and oftentimes getting 3 credits in high school takes the edge off that scariness of going beyond that. It's a safe place, they're there anyway, and they feel accomplished afterwards. Why not go a little further? Why not go a little further than that? Why not go all the way? Some things I've learned. I've received a huge education on the struggles that undocumented students face to receive a college degree. And Washington is ahead of the game, really, for the most part, if you look nationwide, but still, there are so many undocumented students that just don't make it, there. Also, I grew up poor, but I don't think I really fully understood the ramifications of the cycle of poverty until I saw it cycle through my classroom again and again and again. Poverty wears generations down. It just wears them down. So school for these kids needs to be almost like a second home, a place where trusting and caring adults aren't going to judge them and will accept them for where they are and help them to move forward. So like I said before, I'm in the middle of personal statement season, and it's hard, not because grading is hard, which it is, but because now that we've developed trust, they're telling me their stories, and those stories are hard. Those stories are the struggles and the barriers that make college and career readiness challenging for them. Sometimes when we talk about large concepts like becoming college and career ready, we lose sight of the individual stories. And since I'm a literature teacher and I believe in my soul that everything in life is connected to story, I'd like to share some of my excerpts from the personal statements that I've looked through this week with you. To me, they illustrate the challenges our kids face, and they serve as a call to action for all of us to listen and do what we can to help them break down barriers. So just a couple, 3 sentences from 4 personal statements. This one's from McKenna. I always knew that I was adopted, but did not understand why my birth mother left me under a bridge by the local police station in a small village in China, or why I was placed in an orphanage on a special needs waiting list with the possibility of never being adopted. I was born with a 3rd degree cleft lip and palate, which made it difficult to perform simple everyday tasks such as eating and drinking. Next one's from Michelle. My family is from Oaxaca, Mexico. My mother got only up to 6th grade, and my father got up to the beginning of the 2nd grade. My grandfather was an alcoholic who would beat his wife. This made my father, the eldest son and breadwinner, quit going to school and working in the orchards, where he would cut avocados and sell chickens on the street corner to provide for his mother and 3 siblings. The next one's from Fermin. I heard the crack of my mother's ribs breaking. She was abused by my father, and he abandoned us before I started school. Since then, I've been the man of the house, working hard since I was 9 years old. I've done every manual labor job that is known. My first job was working out on the fields of a farm. Now, I wake up with a stiff back like an old man, but the only thing that comes to my mind is family and how I need to take care of them. I know the only way to get our family back on our feet would have to be helping my mom out with the bills. The last one is from Laura. Adversity has been the only constant in my life. I am the daughter of undocumented Peruvian immigrants who came to this country in pursuit of the American dream. I grew up in a small apartment complex in Los Angeles that housed both hardworking immigrants and dangerous drug dealers. My father was absent for long periods of time. When I was 12, I reconnected with him, but our newfound connection was brutally cut short because my father was shot multiple times and left to die in his car all alone. I've learned that nothing lasts forever, and we must make the most of the time we are given on this earth. These are literally 4 of the first 6 personal statements I read this year. 4 of the first 6 are from my AP classes. Every year when I read this writing assignment, first of all, I wondered what I ever found to complain about as a teenager. I mean, I found a lot to complain about, but looking back on it, wow, I did not have the right to complain. And secondly, it's really a wonder that these kids get up every morning with those adversities they face and come to school hungry for opportunities and education. That blows my mind. They've gone through so much, and they've come out with value and strength and resilience that I can say that I certainly did not have as a young woman their age. And those are values that cannot be measured with a standardized test or a multiple choice test. They are so much more than a test score. What if, and I know you've been talking about this, we gave them opportunities to express their learnings in different ways? Performative, project-based, independent study, portfolio assessments. I saw that you were just talking about that. Because so many of our students in Washington State grow up with the odds literally stacked against them, and often tests are another opportunity for them to fail. To prepare these students for college and career readiness, we need to have culturally responsive, holistic assessments where not all value is placed on standardized tests that put our bicultural students at a distinct disadvantage. On a positive note, I am so full of hope and thoroughly impressed by this generation of disadvantaged scholars where every success they have is hard fought. And I think a paradigm shift needs to take place in how we value them. And that begins, not your job, but that begins with fully funding education for all students and with us taking into account their individual challenges and supporting them to succeed. I'd like to finish with the conclusion of my Peruvian student Laura's personal statement. My parents don't want to see me fail. I didn't come to the U.S. to disappoint them. They don't want me to live a life that was as hard as theirs. I can overcome anything, regardless of how many times I fail. I always get up stronger and push myself that much harder to go forward. My struggles are a way to prepare myself for adult life. Those are the struggles that have shaped me into the woman I am today. When I'm determined to do something, I set my mind to it and I will succeed. I will be the first in my family to finish high school and continue education beyond. I am proud of the adversity I faced, and I want my experience to give people hope. I will do great things in life. To me, her words embody the resilience and hope of so many of our students and reminds us what's at stake when we make systemic decisions about education. Thank you.
Well, I think you acquitted yourself quite well with adults, so that's good.
Thank you.
And the power of the voices of those children is just, I don't know how it doesn't make anybody's heart just open up. We do have here at the meeting today a certificate, well, it's a resolution that we'd like to share with you and give to you. And I'm going to ask our chair, I just happen to be chairing the meeting as the acting chair, but I'm going to ask our chair to present that to you. So if you come forward. Yeah, it's on you, bro. Get up there. We need your flags and pictures.
Oh, yes. Okay, great.
In honor of Bethany, ESD 112, 2016 Regional Teacher of the Year. Whereas Bethany Rivard has been named ESD 112's 2016 Regional Teacher of the Year, and whereas Ms. Rivard received the National Board Certification, her Master's of Education from Portland State University, and her Bachelor's of Arts at Hunter College. And whereas Ms. Rivard has taught at Fort Vancouver for over 9 years in English Language Arts. And whereas Ms. Rivard is dedicated to lifting up struggling and marginalized students, helping students to feel safe, valued, and inspired. And whereas Ms. Rivard has served in numerous leadership roles, supporting diverse student populations, and therefore be it resolved that Washington State Board of Education acknowledges the outstanding work of Ms. Rivard and other exemplary educators who remain dedicated to our most important endeavor, the education of ours.
Thank you.
The board and staff will now break for lunch, and we'll have Bethany join us.